freeze-dried, was it this pickled Skittles? I didn't think that was good, but it was actually pretty good as well. So I would recommend people that it's by basically the Berkshire Aircraft is on the back side and the railway yard is on the front side, but it's that whole row and it's just some unique places in there. So I'd recommend if you get a chance to go check it out. And then I also did have a COPA meeting also on Friday, and they talked a lot about how to move the organization along, but not asking for the city for money at the moment. And one thing they're talking about doing is fundraising. In October, some students from Kalima will be coming and visiting the Pasco. And again, just different ways that we in the COPA organization can make it better for Pasco and for these kids, the cooperation between Kalima and Pasco. So it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. Mr. Harpster.
I thought somebody else would have mentioned this, but I attended a council retreat on Saturday and saw a few of you there. Just want the public to know your council's doing work on Saturdays and discussed our priorities and spent a lot of time on budget. So again, appreciate staff's time that was there and everybody else's time up here.
Thank you. They were certainly well prepared and well armed with information. So hopefully we'll be able to nail some things down here over the next few months, and we appreciate that. Seeing no further lights, that moves us along to item number 5, which is items for discussion with opportunity for public comment. The public comment is limited to an aggregate of 8 minutes. It's going to be two minutes segments, pro and con. So if you have a position, please state that when you come up and offer your name and county of residence for the mic. So aside from that introduction, we have a few items. The first one is item A. Pasco School District is here to discuss their district impact fees. Looks like Mr. Zabel, you're going to kick us off there.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Just to kick this off a minute, the school district, in its very, very regulated process, is allowed to work with the city under the city's authority to impose school impact fees for new growth, new development in the community. And in the case of Pasco, that's been occurring since 2012. Back in March of 2012, city imposed ordinance 4046, which set rates for single family and multifamily residences $4,700 per unit and $4,525 per unit each. And those have been in place since. Annually, or I think semi-annually, is it? Yeah, semi-annually, the district's been to us, and part of that process is a capital facilities plan. So the district goes through a very public process, has consistently invited city officials to participate in that process of school needs for schools and a process that accounts for growth, the impacts of growth. And through that, in a very, I think a very tightly designed formula, you basically crank out an impact fee. And that's been a pretty steady thing throughout this. School district just went through this process over the past several months, and this evening Denise Stiffarn, who is the legal counsel for Pasco School District, and Michelle Whitney, the superintendent, are here to talk about the results of their latest efforts. I believe they've already met with the school board and shared that, but want to share that with council. Ultimately, it'll be up to council to consider the input they hear tonight and make a determination on future impact fee schedule. So with that.
All right, thank you so much for having us here again this year. It's been a couple of years since the last time we came and talked about school impact fees and the district's capital facilities plan. I appreciate the city manager's intro and also the staff report in your packet. And I'll try not to be too repetitive as I walk through, but just some history on why we're here, what the capital facilities plan is. So, there we go. So again, the school district has been preparing this capital facilities plan since 2012. The last time we were before you was in February of 2023 with the 2022 capital facilities plan. And just as some additional background, the school district's board of directors goes through a process, as the city manager explained. They go through a SEPA environmental review process, and then at the board adopts the capital facilities plan and forwards it on to the city council for review. So being back here this year establishes that 2-year review. What the reason why we are here at the city and talking about school district capital facilities planning is that the Growth Management Act requires that to the extent a school district wants to request school impact fees, it works with its local jurisdictions by providing a capital facilities plan, and in turn, if that jurisdiction chooses to collect school impact fees on behalf of the school district, that jurisdiction adopts that plan by reference as a part of your own comprehensive plan, and then of course adopts a fee ordinance. So coming in every 2 years, we've gone through this process, and in that capital facilities plan since 2012, the fees have remained consistent. And that's something I'll touch on a little bit more in this conversation tonight, because for the first time this year, the fees look a little bit different. Now, when I say the fees have been consistent, every 2 years, the district has updated its plan. It's had different projects related to capacity needs and different impacts related to growth. But as they've run that through the formula, they've applied a discretionary discount in addition to the city's 25% required discount to get to what's been an even fee across the years. This year, for the first time with new projects in the 2025 capital facilities plan, the fee is actually decreasing below what that threshold has been in the past. And I'll dive a little bit more into that in the coming slides. So from the Growth Management Act, we know that there are 5 basic requirements, and in the school district context, the elements of that capital facilities plan first are establishing a locally adopted level of service. For school districts, that level of service is based upon educational programming standards. And so essentially this is how many students per classroom based upon the educational program, and in turn how many students per building the school district has across its service levels. We then look to existing inventory. So you'll see that the capital facilities plan delineates all of the different school facilities, including the non-educational facilities. We compare the district's 6-year enrollment projections, so looking out towards the 2030-31 school year in this case, looking by grade level, and comparing that specifically to the existing capacity to identify what, if any, needs there are related to that expected growth. When we've identified expected needs in the financing plan, the district identifies projects planned to address those needs, what they're expected to cost, and how the district expects to finance those projects. And then that finally establishes the basis for the impact fee. So talking first about enrollment forecasts and capacity, this district has been a strong growth district since 2012 and even before then. And that growth has continued fairly consistent over the years, with some slight dips happening or some lowering in the rate of growth during the pandemic and then immediately thereafter. That has started to pick back up to pre-pandemic levels, and the district over the next 6 years is planning to see about 200 students or a little bit more per year coming into the district, and that's growth at all 3 grade levels. Now, in determining growth projections, the district looks at various demographic needs related to projecting. They look at the experience in their district of the cohort survival, so students progressing traditionally through their grade systems. They look at development data across the district from both the county and the city. They also look at the rate of the birth rates. How many new students do they expect in those kindergarten grades? They've worked with outside demographers and have taken information from 2 outside demographers for purposes of this study to pull together all of that information to generate their 6-year enrollment projections. So a lot of work goes into looking at what realistically is expected in terms of growth, and in this case, continuing to see growth and seeing growth at all 3 grade levels. This district has been very fortunate in that the district's taxpayers have been quite generous over the years in funding capacity projects and non-capacity projects. So in 2017, of course, the Three Rivers Elementary School and the Columbia River Elementary Schools were funded and constructed. There were also expansions at the middle school level and some portable adjustments. And then most recently in 2023, the 2 new high schools were funded, and those are moving along and will be open for instruction in just a few months in the fall of 2025. There's also been modernization at the Chiawana and Pasco high schools and some athletic field improvements and land acquisition. All of these projects are starting to have either come to an end or soon will come to an end. And so for purposes of planning the next 6 years, the district has started to look at what's next on their agenda. And so that really is the basis for this capital facilities plan. It's looking to see, based upon that projected enrollment growth, their existing facilities, what do they need to plan for? And what they've identified, and this is discussed more specifically in the capital facilities plan, is a need for middle school capacity. And that's where we turn to looking and thinking about that middle school capacity and that planned project now as a basis for school impact fees. So thinking about school impact fees, basically school impact fees at their highest level are a one-time charge on new residential development. They are intended under the Growth Management Act to address the capacity needs created by new residential growth. That's specific to schools. They can only be used for capacity-related projects related to growth. That's why enrollment projections and capacity analysis is so important. They cannot be the sole source of funding. There must be other funding in the mix, and that typically is your school construction bond. It could be a capital levy. It also could include state school construction assistance program funds. Impact fees are one of the funding sources, but they typically tend to be not the primary funding source. Impact fees also must be spent within 10 years of collection, so they have to be linked to that growth in a way that they are providing, if not at the time the home is sold, soon thereafter to provide that capacity. And they must be designed to be proportionate to the impact of each new dwelling unit. And to do that, we rely upon a formula that's been developed over the years and that's been recognized as consistent with those Growth Management Act proportionality requirements. Now, the formula is in the capital facilities plan, but just to high level, try to break it down for you. In looking at the formula, the first step is to identify that growth-related project. So here again, we're looking at a new comprehensive middle school needed to serve growth. We use what's called a student generation rate to measure the impact of each new dwelling unit. What the student generation rate is, it's looking at recent history of new development, actually pulling building permits, comparing them to student addresses, and identifying on average how many new students reside in newly constructed units. The district looks at single-family units as one category and multifamily units as a second category because they each have a little bit different in terms of demographic reach. The student generation rate then compared to the cost of the new high school capacity per seat drives a construction cost per dwelling unit. So that's the proportionality that's required under the law, meaning that you're not charging new development more than its specific impact based upon that formula. Once you get to that point, you need to apply credits. So you have to apply credits for any state school construction assistance program dollars expected to be applied to the project. And then importantly, credits that a new homeowner will pay towards that same capacity improvement. So you need to anticipate bond payments that will be made towards that new middle school project and credit that against the impact fee. Once we get to the bottom, after applying those credits, we then apply automatically that 25% discount to bring it to a final fee. So I've alluded to this, but there have been changes between 2022 and 2025 in that the fee has decreased for both single family and multifamily dwelling units. And there's some important reasons for this. In the 2022 Capital Facilities Plan, on which the existing fee is based, there were projects at the elementary grade level and projects at the high school level. Those projects all identified to serve new growth that was happening within the 6 years. Those projects all, again, are at completion or near completion. And while they've all been built in such a way that they will continue to provide new capacity over the next 6 years, meaning that any new students coming into the system at the elementary or the high school level will benefit from the voters' front funding of capacity at those schools. Because those projects are near completion, the district is removing those from the fee formula and now looking to that near-term future planning, which is the middle school project. So now there's just a middle school project in that formula. And the important thing to keep in mind is that the middle school student generation rate on its own is much lower than an elementary school project and a high school project. So just in the fact that it's just a middle school project, that drives a lower cost per dwelling unit. And what is even more curious here, but it is the operation of the formula, is that the cost per dwelling unit for a single family unit is less than the cost credit that the single family tax payment will provide against that fee, meaning that the tax credit component nullifies the fee in its entirety. So you have a fee of 0 for single family. And then for multifamily, the impact per dwelling unit is lower than what it has been in recent years, but the tax credit does not nullify it in the same way that it does for the single family dwelling unit. So where we get to through that formula are fees that look, instead of $4,700 per single family unit, which you've seen in the past, we're at 0 per single family unit. And instead of just at about $4,500 for multifamilies, we're just under $2,600 for multifamily units, and that's per dwelling unit. This is something that I think really validates why school districts update these plans regularly, because you want them to be current to development impacts at the time that you've adopted the plan and at the time the fee is charged. And so this is something that in 2 years, it may look different depending on what projects the district has identified as growth related at that time. This was in your packet. It's the School District Policy 9223, and this is just the school district statement that it will seek school mitigation through all legal means, and it has applied this with both the city and the county over the years. And the policy itself recognizes the City of Pasco School Impact Fee Ordinance, and it also recognizes that while Franklin County does not currently have a School Impact Fee Ordinance, it will continue to request that they adopt one. Obviously, we're here for review by you at the Pasco City Council. The district will continue its requests to Franklin County related to adoption of the Capital Facilities Plan and a School Impact Fee Ordinance. And until the time that the county should do that, the school district will continue to seek school mitigation through the State Environmental Policy Act process, which it has been doing now for several years. And touching on that, just the difference between Growth Management Act impact fees and State Environmental Policy Act mitigation fees, there's some key differences I think that are important to highlight. For impact fees, they're applicable to all residential units. They are something that happens when building permits are issued. They are known when a fee ordinance is adopted, so there's planning that can take place for payment of that along with all other permit fees. With SEPA mitigation fees, they are secured through the SEPA review process, and so there is some uncertainty at the front end. Often a developer will have to wait to see the school district's comments. There may be some negotiation, there may be an appeal process, and so there is less predictability through that process. in addition to the fact that there are SEPA exemption levels, meaning that there are only certain projects that the district can actually request mitigation fees for, and those are projects that are subject to SEPA review. So I am happy to take any questions. I know that was a lot of information.
Excellent. Mr. Harpster.
One question, excuse me, related to the end of that discussion. The fee is assessed at time of permitting. So then let's say there's a plat that was approved last year, but the building permits aren't applied for until this year. After this update, do they then pay the fee that's in place at the time of building permit, or is it retroactive when the plat was applied for?
They pay the fee at the time of building permit. So impact fees don't vest in the way that other development regulations do.
And so then that would be the same case for projects or developers that have done mitigation agreements?
A little bit different for mitigation agreements. They actually are locked in place
Okay.
earlier in the process.
Okay. Similarly related, sort of off topic, besides the new construction of middle school number 5, are there plans to remodel any existing middle schools like McLaughlin?
There are plans. I might ask one of my school district friends to come up and talk a little bit more about that, but there are plans to do some elementary school modernization work, and then there is at least 2 middle school related projects. Yeah, you want to jump in, Michelle?
So thank you for the question. We are currently working through the process of obtaining our long-term facilities management plan. And in that plan, it does focus on modernization and replacement of elementary schools, potential modernization of McLaughlin Middle School. So that plan will go to our board at the end of June with scheduled adoption at the beginning of the fall. There will be a public process that's coming up within the next few months where community will have an opportunity to give us feedback around that plan. But the board's direction to us is to have a long-term facilities management plan that outlines 3 bonds 4 years apart from now until 2040, which I will be retired by then. So.
Okay. So it sounded like it's for sure elementary schools, potentially McLaughlin, is that right? Okay, and how is that, again, I know I'm getting a little off topic, how is that identified? Because, Ochoa was only built 20 years or so ago, Stevens has been essentially rebuilt, and then the other ones are newer. McLaughlin, to my knowledge, has had no significant remodels since it was built.
Sure.
So it would seem that's a greater need than elementary school remodels. Just wondering how that's determined.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we go through a process where there's an outside third party that comes in and does basically an analysis of every school site, and it has multiple factors that's considered, and there's a building condition score that's assigned to the building, and those building condition scores really do drive plans for modernization or replacement.
And then for Mr. Ferguson, since nothing has changed since the ordinance was initially passed in 2012, with the fee being changed, do we need to revise our ordinance at all?
So yeah, that would be a first for us, obviously, because we haven't done it since 2012. So yeah, I was just looking at how that process would look like, but it would certainly need to be by ordinance because it was enacted by ordinance.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would rely heavily on Ms. Tiffarm to help us with that process. So.
No, I'm just excited that this should hopefully reduce housing costs just a little bit for at least a couple of years, and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Harpster. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Tiffarm, for your presentation. This seems, I was going to save this for miscellaneous discussion, but this almost seems like a better time to bring it up. Everybody, on Wednesday night, Maya Angelou is celebrating their 20th anniversary. They're going to have food trucks, activities, knockerball, other activities. I was invited out there in my official and unofficial capacity, but 20-year anniversary Wednesday night at the elementary school from 4 to 6 p.m. So, sorry, but thank you. With that, and maybe I should have asked this in advance. I was just having a hard time finding it on the interwebs. How many municipalities on behalf of school districts utilize impact fees across the state of Washington, roughly? If you're not prepared to answer that, I totally understand.
I'm not fully prepared,
Okay.
and it's a really good question.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot
I can
like
get
that.
I can get more specific information later. What I can tell you is in Western Washington, most of the jurisdictions, cities and counties have GMA school impact fee ordinances. And so coming further over the mountains, there are fewer, but in terms of actual numbers, I'm not entirely sure, but I can get that for you.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair enough. And I guess my follow-up question to that would just be the dollar amount. And I heard what you said, there's a formula that
Yeah.
goes into it and all that, but I was still curious where, I guess maybe where we fall in that.
A really good question. Based upon, and I work with several districts throughout the state who do this work, and this fee is definitely on the lower end, particularly at the single family. I have not seen a zero single family fee.
The
for-
proposed fee, pardon me for
proposed
interrupting.
fee,
Okay, I
yes,
just want to
correct.
make sure I'm
Yeah.
following you, yep.
For a school district proposing fees in a recent year. What I do know, and what is true, is there are some school districts who have had fees in the past, who have had growth turn a different direction, or they have more than enough capacity. They've gotten to a point where they've built enough and their growth has plateaued, where they are not requesting fees. So there are definitely several school districts who are in that position currently. But in terms of those asking for impact fees, both the proposed single-family fee and the multifamily fee are at the lower end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rim, Mr. Prowse.
Thank you, Mayor. Was the school district expecting this outcome based on this review?
I would say not at the front end. When we started preparing the capital facilities plan and knowing that there was ongoing growth and that growth was expected to continue, in many ways, I think there was an expectation that probably the fee would stay status quo as to what it's been. But then when we started looking at project status, particularly given the soon-to-be conclusion of the high school projects and looking at what's planned in the next 6 years, still not entirely sure that the fees would drop in the way they have. But then when it was narrowed down to just a middle school project and looking at that middle school student generation rate, that's at the point where it became very evident that the fees would be going downward this year.
Thank you. Is there a possibility that the single-family home fee could come back? Like,
Definitely.
in a time frame, you had to go by years, what would that be? 4 years, maybe 6, 8, 10?
What we would do is pursuant to the schedule with the city, in 2 years, the district will update their capital facilities plan again. So they'll take another look at growth. They will see whether or not their existing elementary capacity, for example, is still sufficient over that 6-year period. It may be that they've identified they need to start planning new elementary capacity, and so that project could be added, or a project could be added into the fee formula. That in itself may cause that single family fee to go back up.
Now, the school district is to do every 2 years do a review and then essentially redo that formula.
Correct.
Have we have been doing that every 2 years, or we have not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that something the school district does, or is that something that the city needs to talk to the school district to initiate every 2 years?
The school district does it, and they are proactive in doing it. It's an important planning tool at the school district level, and they also know that you expect every 2 years to have an updated plan come before you.
Okay, and so the next one would be in 2026?
Probably towards the end of 2026, just to be on the same cycle that we're on now.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milne.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I was going to want to get back to where you talked about Franklin County, it talks about the process that it's negotiated between the developer and the school district. How has Franklin County, have they been paying their fair share? Are they paying, do you think, more or less? What are your thoughts on Franklin County overall? Can you just kind of shed some light on that?
I would say that the school district has a really good system in place for ensuring that they're looking at all of the development notices that come from Franklin County. So when Franklin County gets a new subdivision application, they're required to inform all affected agencies of the application, the subdivision approval process, and importantly, the environmental review process. They provide a comment period. School district, as a matter of course, always provides comments. and always provides comments that are contingent on reaching a negotiated mitigation fee. If they don't meet that negotiated fee, then they'll file an appeal through the hearing examiner process. To date, they have not had to actually go through that appeal process because they've been able to reach agreements with developers for those subdivisions. And they use the same fee that is in the capital facilities plan. So they want equity throughout the school district in terms of what they're asking for. So if it's 25 single-family homes in a plat, currently they would ask for the $4,700 fee for each of those homes. So the only deficiency in the process is where there's a SEPA exemption and the subdivision does not go through environmental review. So in that case, the district doesn't really have an avenue to seek school mitigation.
Okay. You kind of answered it, but I've always heard things that the county doesn't pay, nor do they want to pay, but they want to use our services. So, as a law-abiding tax citizen, you want, if people are using the service, you want them to pay. And I was just trying to get your thoughts on that, because it doesn't seem fair if we're all having to pay and they're not, and then eventually sometimes these divisions get annexed into the city. So basically, everybody's kind of getting a free ride on all this. So I do kind of appreciate your clarification on this. So thank you.
Yeah. And it's a good point, and it is the reason that every time the district updates this capital facilities plan, they renew that request to Franklin County for purposes of trying to get a school impact fee in place.
Thank you. I see your light. I have a couple quick questions, and I'll circle to you. Running on that theme, what's the SEPA exemption? Do you know offhand? Is it 10 units?
It's 20.
It's 20.
20 for single family, and it's 4 for multifamily.
Okay. Do you have any sense of idea of how many applications have gone through exempt
I
in the
don't.
past? Okay.
I don't.
I think that'd be. I don't necessarily need to know that. It'd be helpful to know. In particular, if they tend to break up subdivisions in a smaller parcel to exempt from SEPA for, I suspect it wouldn't be just for this, but whatever purposes of, look, SEPA's not easy. It's cost prohibitive, and there are lots of reasons to do it. But I think that would be helpful to understand where we may be, to Mr. Milne's point, missing out on some parity there. I do appreciate the information given. Do you get a sense of how this, where our fee stands from our neighbors across the river?
Your neighbors across the river.
Benton County school districts?
Sorry, I missed that part.
The Benton County school districts?
I don't. I don't know that they actually collect school impact fees in those school districts. I think that they only go through an avenue of SEPA mitigation, and I'm not sure what fee they're charging.
Okay. Again, probably not absolutely need to know, just helpful to know, just kind of what the background. We tend to do what we can to compare. It's always nice to know that business is on as close to equal footing as possible with the local jurisdictions. I think that's it for me. I appreciate this information. I appreciate to know. It's always good to have someone coming and asking for less rather than more. So I appreciate that continued effort to have this kind of equitable solution. Mr. Harpster, I know you have a couple quick questions, or hopefully one.
Yeah, just some quick follow-up. My experience in my day job as a developer representative, we're doing every single development project in the county, and we've done probably half a dozen mitigation agreements with the school district. In total, I think there's been only one project over the last 3 or 4 years that was exempt, that there were no fees collected for, and that was 9 lots. So there's, in my experience and to my knowledge, there's not a significant amount of revenue that's being missed out on. Then Richland and Kennewick, and that was part of my question. They don't have a school impact fee, and that's been a point of frustration for some of us up here. Is developers come in here and say, "You guys are the most expensive place to develop." You guys being the city of Pasco, and we'll try to show them the data and say we're actually not. We're even with Richland and Kennewick except for the school impact fee. And so a source of frustration has been, we're collecting this fee on behalf of you guys, and is that because other than SEPA mitigation, you would have no recourse to collect that?
That is correct. So under the way the impact fee statute works, districts have to rely on their local jurisdictions to collect or they have the SEPA process. What occurs to me, and I don't know this information, but I think it's worth obviously trying to find out, and the mayor's question prompted my thinking on this one. I don't know the status of growth-related needs in those other school districts and whether or not they even qualify for school impact fees. And so that would be a first question, is they may not have a capacity need related to growth, so they haven't went to the second step of actually requesting a school impact fee. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it's just something that occurred to me to think about and how you think about comparisons to your neighbors.
And that was a follow-up question I had that I wasn't clear on the answer either, is Richland and Kennewick don't have the school impact fee and they don't seek mitigation agreements either through SEPA, as you mentioned may be the case. And so my understanding from doing projects over there is they're getting all their revenue through bonds. And so is that not an option to ask the voters for increased bonds, larger bonds we've asked for in the past?
It is an option. It's always an option up to debt capacity to ask voters for more dollars. I think the voters in the Pasco School District have been very, as I mentioned, very generous over the years in funding these projects. And in some communities, the existing community residents, when they're supporting school bonds, look to another avenue for new development to pay a portion of the school capacity that is being paid for by those bonds. So in some ways they go hand in hand in that regard, is they are, while they're a very small part of a project, they demonstrate that not all of the need is falling to the existing taxpayers to fund.
Okay, appreciate that.
Seeing no further lights, you're off the hook, but that does open us to public comment. Do we have any comments on this issue? Going once, going twice, third time. With that, thank you to our friends at the school district. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll continue to work with you. And again, like I said, I always appreciate someone coming to ask for less, not more. So you get a gold star. Yeah, I know. Man, I'm straight back to kindergarten here. So really appreciate it. Thank you for spending your time. I mean, you're welcome to stick around, but I suspect you have other things to do. With that, we'll move on to item B, which is development fees discussion, and this looks like Deputy City Manager Sigdell.
Thank you, Mayor, and evening, Council. This is an item that we've discussed a few times in the past, and we, as a reminder, you had asked for staff to go back and do some outreach with the development community. The topic is in terms of inspection and plan review of public infrastructure when it comes to development. And we had proposed several options. One of them was a 3% of the project cost. So it would be the project cost on the public infrastructure. So the cost of putting in that public infrastructure. And also we discussed our current state, which is the hourly fee. And during our outreach with the development community, a few things that came up was the fact that they would really like for us to do a more comprehensive rate study that includes not just this rate, but all of the other planning and building permit rates as well. And that is a very valid ask and something that we should be doing. And they would really like for us to stick to the hourly rate and just update the hourly rate to reflect the current cost of labor and providing such service. This is a pretty complicated area. One of our hopes with going with something that resembles our neighbors was to be able to receive the funding in a way that is most efficient for the city. And also be able to get a little bit more funding so that we can staff up a little bit more, invest in our technology and our processes a little bit more. However, we understand the fact that while it might not be completely predictable, an hourly fee is something that this community highly desires, rather than the 3% or a percentage-based rate. So what we're coming to you with today is a simple escalation of cost, which would be instead of $60 per hour. So right now we have $90 per hour for the first hour I like to not even think of that as a rate. It's just, the first hour. But really, $60 per hour is our current rate, and we're proposing we move it to $100 an hour. As I mentioned in the staff report, this is only as direct of costs as you can get, only. And so this is not a comprehensive cost increase, but we're also trying to be mindful of not increasing the rates significantly all at once. But also at the same time, and this is not included in your staff report, but we've been working with few consultants to see what it would cost to do a full, complete study of all of our planning, development, review, building permit fee structures. And we received an estimate late in Friday, and that estimate is about $90,000. I do believe it's a big number, but I do believe that it is worth the effort for the expertise that they bring to the table, and also the fact that we are overdue for a comprehensive review of all of our rates and see what needs to be eliminated, what needs to be changed, what needs to be added. And so with that, what I have for you is an interim increase in that $60 per hour to $100 per hour, and then a request for direction from council on if you'd like to move forward with doing a more comprehensive rate study that would include a lot more other components as requested by the development community.
Thank you, Ms. Signal. Mr. Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was thinking about this a lot yesterday, going through the packet and everything. I don't really have an appetite to do a huge, drawn-out rate study. I don't think the development community, from which I heard at a meeting, it has an appetite for the percentage. And don't get me wrong, that it was 6 times, 10 times, and if you did the math, it was about $400 an hour. And so I think when they did that, it really wasn't justified. And so I think $100 is a good starting point, but I think if we're just going to go ahead and make a change, I say we just go ahead and add a little bit more. And so I would like for us to entertain at like $150 an hour, and a portion of that has to go towards putting money away to hire more people, build that capacity, put money away for technology. I think that's the best thing to do right now. I don't see a reason why to go through this whole study, pay someone $90,000, and then turn around, present it to the development community, and then they're still going to be against the 3%, 2%, whatever percent. I just think it's such a big jump. I think we can work that way over some time. I don't see the benefit of it. So that's the reason why I sat down and was kind of looking at the numbers and playing around a calculator. And I just looked at this way. I was like, you know what? I think $150 an hour rate for all the time spent. And then I looked at the couple meetings ago, I looked at that little table you guys gave, and it gave comparisons between City of Kennewick, Richland, Pasco. And if I did that, it'd be about like, for that example you guys gave, it was close to like $17,000. So it was about 10 grand more than what we, I guess, in theory charged originally, which was close to 7. So that at least gives the City of Pasco money to put away for admin support, looking for other people like planners, reviewers, invest in technology. So that's what I would like to see, and that would probably just be long-standing. And again, if we have to do a study to look at all our rates and stuff, I'm fine with that. But this essentially should just be left alone at this point, and then eventually, if inflation and stuff catches up with us again, we look to increase that hourly rate. But I think that would be fair. I mean, $100 an hour would only cover the cost of labor, right? And so how much money are you getting out of that to invest in the department? It's not a lot.
It only includes just the hourly labor, which not every hour that a staff works is billable. So there's a whole component here. But we also have to be very mindful of development fees and ensuring that there's a very strict calculation of those costs, and ensuring that we can fully defend them. And that is where doing a more comprehensive rate study, because we have managers who don't just do one thing, or supervisors who don't just work in one area. So looking at it comprehensively is definitely beneficial, especially given that we've not really done that in the past. And we are at a size where that should be an expectation of our customers and our residents. So that is why you're seeing a $90,000 price tag, because there's really nothing to build from and there's a lot to look through.
Then I guess then why did we go ahead and just suggest a copy in Kennewick then if we needed to provide a study and provide a nexus and all that stuff? I mean, it seemed like we've been just dragging this on for months then at this point. Then I guess why didn't we just get presented with an option just to do a study at that point?
You're correct, and I believe we did discuss that. One of the ideas was that we would do something for our most painful areas very quickly, and be able to copy something that exists across the river, and then be able to tackle the other areas as we are resolving some of the issues. So we're not waiting for 9 months, 12 more months for a study. But and that we believe was a consensus, at least with staff and development community at some point. However, the increase in the rates was something that was a lot more surprise than I was anticipating. And so the request now is for us to do a more comprehensive rate study.
So the $100 an hour is just to stop the bleeding, I guess?
That is correct, yes.
That just seems interesting. Okay, and that's what staff believes was best. I think we should go for a little bit more. Again, I guess I don't remember being presented with doing a study. I guess correct me if I'm wrong. I just don't remember that. It looked like we were going back and forth with the development community, trying to figure things out, and then now we're having to provide a study to justify what we're doing, which I'm in favor of, but it just seems like we're just kicking the can down the road again. And so we're not really getting anything out of what we're trying to do now. And I mean, how long is this study going to take?
My best guess is about 9 months to 12 months. And just to clarify, higher you start taking the rates, more you have to justify your rates. And so more you need better math behind your numbers. So $100 is something that I can defend at any given moment. Now you start getting into 150, 200, whatever that number comes up to, then you have to, then there's a whole lot of other components that comes into play, very much like what you would see in our utility rate study. There's so many components and we have to be able to defend every part of that. So $100 or maybe even more, and more than happy to hear from council overall. We can go for that, but we have to be able to really defend it and do a lot more work on the back end to show that.
Right. I guess I'm trying to grill you, but we were going to do this percentage and it went up to 70,000 and we really didn't provide any justification. And now we're let's go and provide the justification. It just seems if we went along with it, we wouldn't be doing this. So, but okay, I'll go ahead and stand down. I still think it should be a little higher. I stand with $150 an hour right now as an interim rate, and then we do the study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prowse. Mr. Herbster.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate your time spent on this, especially being that it's not your primary role. With the discussion happened just now, I want to make sure I understand this. $100 is easy to explain, for lack of a better term, for a temporary stopgap solution for as long as it takes to do a rate study. And what was proposed as one option a few weeks ago on a percent base, that would have required the study, correct?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because that's something that is a practice that we've seen in other places. However, when you're starting to update rates and you've got development community who would like for you to step through those rates slowly, you have to be able to justify the hourly rate or even the percentage base rate. So the 3% would be a really easy one. Now, if we came to you and said it should be 7%, that's kind of where you have to really be able to show your numbers. 3% is a low percentage for most of the industry as you look around the state. Whereas if you start getting into the higher end, then you have to really be very sure of your numbers and make sure that what you are charging is very defensible.
Mhm.
And I would say that there's a range between 100 and 200 where staff could probably come up with a defensible range. We're only proposing 100 at this time because right now the dollar amount is 60. If council would like to do the rate study, more comprehensive rate study, then you've got about 9 months, 12 months, and then we can come back to you with something that is much more studied and defensible on all fronts rather than just this one.
Okay, appreciate that. Yeah, I think I share Mr. Prowse's confusion that 3% was going to be a massive increase, and so going from current rate to 150 doesn't seem like that much. And I was nervous when I opened up the agenda, thinking I hope it's not $400 or more. And so I was pleasantly surprised to see it wasn't anywhere near that. But my position would be the same as Ms. Prowse, that we start with 150. That's just slightly doubling it, but that's still significantly lower than the previous options that we discussed. A few other comments. I do agree that we should start the comprehensive fee study, and I sat in online on the developer meeting, and that seemed to be the consensus of everybody there. The conversations I remember having was, let's get this fee increased now while we do the study instead of waiting, so at least we can get some extra revenue coming in the meantime. And then of the bullet points in the discussion paragraph of the agenda report, just yes to all of it. Yes to the comprehensive study, yes with an increase to 150, and then yes to evaluating incremental fee adjustments over time. And then, of course, yes to enhancing transparency. So, again, appreciate the work that's gone into this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Harpster. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you. I have similar thoughts. First of all, I just want to say, Ms. Sigdell, you have taken this on, and like Mr. Harpster said, just kind of ran with it as really from a council request. It's one of the bigger items of feedback that we heard from the development community. So I really, really appreciate you working with us on it. If you would remind me one thing, these fees, they just can't be used for anything though, correct?
They can be only used for permitting and development related activities.
Just within that, we can't put more police on the road with
No, we
it or
cannot.
anything. Okay, I always got to ask. I'm always there. So, just a couple more thoughts here. Looking at this, and you gave an example here that shows a huge disparity between the city of Pasco and the other municipalities by tens of thousands of dollars. Was this example picked? I mean, I guess, would this example be more favorable than other examples? Or is this pretty much kind of an average? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is if we picked a different development with a different fee, would it show just still as lopsided, or would it be a little more even, do you think? Or
I do think that it would be fairly lopsided based on this particular type of activity. And the reason I say that is our building permits. So the permits for building, they're pretty similar all across the board. But there might be some other activity where we might be a little bit more expensive. School impact fees are part of that. So that's why, and I apologize for not attaching the slide that shows some of our impact fees and a little bit more effort to do apples to apples comparison. But every development is different. It comes with its own challenges. But I do believe that overall, we are in line with other cities when you include school impact fees, and we are less with other cities when you exclude it.
okay, no, I appreciate that. Looking at this, obviously, one of the biggest complaints several of us heard from the development community was the process, was the time, how much money it was costing them, having to wait and everything. And I guess just to be blunt, did they kind of look at the bill of what it would be at 3% and say, hey, this would actually be financially better for us? That trade-off is really the feedback you heard?
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe there is a desire for things to be better, and I think we can definitely accomplish that. We're looking at transportation impact fee, which is a key area that is the biggest challenge. And so if we are to reduce the scope of the traffic impact analysis, because right now it includes everything and anything, a large volume of projects might be included in that. They might be big dollars, like sometimes Road 76 overpass, and those are big dollar projects. And so it's a sticker shock, and then it's a long drawn out negotiation process. Whereas updating the transportation impact fee is going to get us to a lot more localized safety access around the neighborhood, and maybe an intersection kind of discussion rather than the interchange discussion. And so that is the one area that is a big issue that we hear and we experience as staff as well, that extends the timeline a lot farther out. And so once we resolve that, then you're going to see the process be a lot better. There's definitely many other things that we need to do. Increasing the SEPA threshold is one that we've been talking about, and I will just apologize in advance. We've been too busy to be able to kind of move that process along, but our newest CED director is going to be arriving here in 2 weeks, and she's going to fix everything. So, but there's a lot of those key things that are a challenge right now that are outside of the cost, as you mentioned, and so we're working on that.
Okay, no, I really appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work you've done on. I mean, the last thing I want to see this do is, for lack of a better phrase, just stick it to the development community. I mean, these are people who are investing in our community. These are people who live in our community. These are people really we're in partnership with to build this community. And so, yes, as much as we can work with them and partner with them is great. But on the other hand, we are all, to be stewards of the community too, and to make sure that, we have the resources to provide the assets and the infrastructure for the community. So I would definitely be supportive of some kind of middle of the road approach that gets the development done, allows the city to have the resources they do, but makes us more attractive than our neighbors across the creek. So I thank you so much, Ms. Sigdell, for all of your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Moman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be somewhat brief. I just want to say that when I saw the $100, I thought that was also quite low. I'm also amendable to the 150 or in that range, depending on what staff thinks is the best course of action on that. And then just so we have a fourth vote, I'm also for spending the $90,000 on the study. So just letting you know where I'm at, and I again agree with all the council members that have spoken so far. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prowse, I see your light. I want to get in a couple comments before I circle back to you. I think, if we're going to stopgap this, one of the concerns I consistently heard was when we do the hourly rate, there's time that's spent that's on administrative work that takes away when we're billing. And then from the development community, what I hear is what they're really most concerned about, and obviously an exorbitant increase, they were concerned about that. But the primary concern was consistency in our review process and in our review timing. Now, I understand that this is a question of what it should cost, but I do believe that that's some of the cost-benefit analysis that needs to be driven here. I suspect the rate study is not going to achieve that, will it?
No, the rate study will give, what we have is a rate that has been built up over time. And so it does need some fresh eyes. It is not going to fix the process, but it might allow us, I do believe actually it'll allow us to think about our processes and how our rates are charged and what does it truly take to do something, and if it's worth doing or it's worth doing differently. So I do believe it's going to help us think about our processes differently, but not necessarily if we it's not going to change the process unless we think about the process and how we're going to change it.
So realizing that your joy begins in 2 weeks, when we get the CED director and this falls onto her plate. My admonition, my comment, I guess my individual direction, see if council supports it, is if we're going to go ahead and increase the rate for a stopgap. I'm fine with that. Quite frankly, I'm not sure the full utility of the rate study. I understand that it helps support if we modify or restructure our rates, but it sounds to me the most important things are, one, making sure that the bank account's adequately funded so that we could spend some time bettering our process, giving more surety and direct path to the development community who's coming in here and paying these fees. I think I would be more inclined to increase the rate, hit the stopgap, and put that same effort, maybe not into a rate study, but into a process streamlining. I can't remember the stupid crap they do out on site, the Kaizen stuff or whatever, like the Six Sigma. I mean, I didn't buy into it, but some sort of study like that where you're looking at your process, determining what's broken and what's fixable. So I think for me, if 150 is justifiable, and I don't know that it is, and I don't know that it isn't, and that allows us to set aside some money or utilize that to look hard at our process while making sure we're not expending too much, my preference would be to increase the fee, hold on the rate study, look at the process study or study the process, maybe whether that means hiring someone to do that or whatever, purchasing new technology. I think we need to get that process moving before justifying an even greater increase. So I'd like to see an increase to get the support. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And Mayor, that is an effort that it's been ongoing, but it's a really big ship to turn around.
I understand.
We are working through some of the staffing and locations and also our technology, which is quite old and doesn't quite meet our criteria, but it's not easy right now to move on to something new either. So we're trying to find a good space to maneuver in some and have a long-term plan. So I do want to assure you that that's on top of mind for staff.
And I appreciate that. And I guess just my kind of parting comment is if we can bank the money to fix that or streamline or improve that, again, to me, that seems to be a priority rather than really understanding the rates, especially if we were bringing at least to quasi-market value. Mm-hmm. If we're losing out on money, so be it. It's not going to bleed us. But if we have more money than we have today for the same efforts, that's money that we can use either for staffing or understanding what part of our process absolutely needs to change, what should change, and what can change. And I think, again, from my perspective, from what I'm hearing from both staff and the development community, is that's almost a higher priority. So we can recover our funds and work towards that. Again, that's my personal kind of direction. But again, you're asking about a different study that sounds like folks are supportive of. I'll stand by whatever we decide. Mr. Prowse, a couple quick questions.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'll put a bow on it. I mean, so I pulled up Northwest Co-Professionals. It's probably not apples to apples, but I mean, one of their rates for commercial fire plan review is 125. Isn't that, I mean, they're essentially an arm of that same department, right? CED. Mm-hmm. And we're only going to charge 100. Again, maybe not the same thing, but I mean, residential plan review is 85. I mean, I want to be able to cover the cost of the labor, at least put some money away, rainy day fund, so we can employ more people, do marketing, do whatever we got to do, upgrade technology. I mean, if we're going to go through a percentage, then if I understand, again, across the river they're doing 3%, 2%, 1%, then 0.5%. I mean, we have to increase this, but I'm not in favor, I guess at this point, for doing a $90,000 review for some consultant that's going to take 9 months, and then before we know it's going to be a year, and then we're still talking about this in 2026. I think we need to get presented with some different options other than that. And if that's the case, then I would like to see something coming back to us. What rates are we talking about then? But it just seems like we really need to put money into that department, and $150 is a drop in the bucket. I'm sure developers would be okay with that. They were concerned about the percentages and it going up to 60 to 70 to $80,000, $400 to $500 an hour. That's what they were concerned about. That's what I heard. That's what they've talked to me about. And I think $150, they would be happy with that. $200 probably wouldn't even bat an eye. I mean, we're charging $60 an hour, $9 for the first hour. I don't know who made up those rates, but man, they really put us in a hole going forward. And so that's the whole point, I guess, why I'm so passionate about it. Let's do something correct so that at least it makes it so that we're stable for years to come. If that's a study, then be my guest. But I'm just not in favor of these consultants. I don't know why we waste our money on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prowse. Mr. Harpster.
Yeah, I was just going to add my support for the mayor's position on maybe spending some of that $90,000 on working with staff. So again, like you said, whatever council wants to do, I'd be open to going with. But I just think it's an interesting idea instead of doing a rate study to. I know, as you said, Mr. There's already a lot of effort going into that with the Lean Six Sigma stuff, of which I'm a certified expert. Thank you very much. But maybe some more effort could go into that. And I'm sure we can't do both. And so I think my priority, if we had to pick one, would be more time spent with staff and not preparing, but bettering their processes. But again, if we could only pick one, that'd be my priority. If that's not the way council wants to go, then I'd still be in favor of the rate study.
Thank you. I'll watch out for my black belt friend here. So you don't have clear direction at this point, and you need that. I guess the question is, do we believe that 150 is a justifiable market rate, or do we need more information on? Do you need to uncover more information on that?
No, we can definitely get to 150.
Okay.
And we can have a plan for an update down the line.
So with that, I'm going to ask for a non-vote but supportive council. Are we good with the 150 by either head nod or yay or golly geez? We got enough heads and thumbs that it's an informal support of that approach. So again, come back please if 150 is not justifiable for some reason. Bring it back to whatever is between 100 and 150 the staff sees fit. So two of us have pitched the idea of looking at process improvement before going out to a market rate. Okay, I see enough head nods. Is that something that's clear enough to staff, or do we need to hash that out? I mean, I think, quite frankly, you're the ones that ought to lead that.
No, I think that we can definitely forego that. I will just say that probably in a year or so, we do want to look at that, just given that these rates have not been looked at for a very long time. And they need to be looked at holistically all together rather than one by one if we can do so.
I think we're all in agreement with that. I think if we can focus our immediate efforts on improving the process, you come back, hopefully maybe you uncover something in 2-3 months and bring back, hey, look, we're going, or even a quick email to council. It doesn't have to be in one of these presentations. Hey, we uncovered this. There's a new product out. It's going to cost blank and whatever, right? And we can talk about it if it needs to be, or if it's under the threshold, we give you the go ahead to purchase, right? So my take is, again, and I think this is hopefully articulated this, let's figure out what we can band-aid, what's broken we can fix, and very quickly thereafter, having a direction of a process improvement, then commence the rate study, or at least bring back that request. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. I see no further lights with that. Do we have any public comment on this issue? Sorry for anyone napping. Going once, going twice, third time. With that, we'll move on to item C, Resolution Second Amendment to RH2 Professional Services Agreement for Northwest Irrigation System Upgrade. This is from Director Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. We are presenting to you an amendment for the irrigation system upgrade project. We had talked recently about irrigation system. Next slide, please. And this project is the project that will make possible receiving water from the South Columbia Irrigation District and pushing that water through a pump station into our system. So this pump station is proposed to be located in the Broadmoor and Iris Lane vicinity, and as you're seeing it in the screen, there is a set of parcels that are yet to be created through a plat, and the city would be acquiring some of those. So through the past several years, we've been working with the Bureau of Reclamation, USBR, to get an agreement with them for the municipal and industrial water contract in which we would be able to lease water from them. And the district, the South Columbia Basin Irrigation District, would be the ones basically delivering that water to us. And RH2 was selected to do design of this pump station. They have helped with the coordination and permitting for it. We had worked through the special permit to locate a pump station within a residential area, and due to the extensive work that has taken place and some changes with planning requirements and permit requirements, we are in need of increasing the dollar amount for this design to allow for stepping back from a 90% we had prepared, go back to 60, and accommodate the changes that are needed to make this project happen. We are very close to having the M&I contract in front of you. Actually, it was preliminary scheduled to be tonight in front of you. There were some edits that were expected, so we are expecting a new draft agreement from USBR, and we hope to be back with that agreement to you in 2 weeks. And at this time, what we're focusing on is getting this project designed and ready to be advertised in the summer, should all the other agreements come to fruition, so that we are able to be operational in 2027. And with that, I think we have one more slide. Thank you. This is some of the changes that you're seeing. The previous site plan accommodated parcel shapes and roads and other things. There are some big changes in the plat that need to be accommodated, as well as changes that were imposed through the special permit process. Next slide, please. And finally, a summary of the original PSA and the changes that are needed. Again, this new PSA would get us through support during construction. And you are seeing the dollar amount. So this amendment is for just under $234,000 for RH2 services for the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this issue? Going once, going twice, 3 times. With that, that moves along to item number 6, which is miscellaneous council discussion. Seeing Mr. Milne's light, we'll go there.
I just want to make a point that on Thursday on my agenda thing, it has the April 17th at Chihuahua High School, the International Night. And I'm hosting a Japanese exchange student, so I'm sure I will be there. But just letting everybody in the community come out, and these things are really good to get to know different cultures, and yeah, very excited about this. So just wanted to share it. That was my point.
Thank you. City Manager, I skipped you. I didn't see your light at first, sorry.
It's okay, I was a little slow on it. Good evening again, Council. And Deputy Mayor, thank you for announcing International Night. I did get an email out to Council from Kim Lerman today that you all should have, gives you a little more specifics. So following up on the Mayor's comments last week, I wanted to just another reminder on the spring egg extravaganza. That's a Jesse word, but it'll be Saturday the 19th at the Pasco Sporting Complex. The city is partnering with God's New Generation Church. Games and prizes, 55,000 Easter eggs to find out there. So kids of all ages, and we're noon to 2 p.m. So should be a pretty well-attended event, as it has in the past. And then we mentioned a few minutes ago about Sergeant Gregory's retirement. And I wanted to just, Council indulge me a minute to talk a little bit about his career. So Brad's been here since 1992 as a full-time officer. So 30 3 years of service. He was a reserve prior to that. He's received actually 8 unit citations. He's been the employee of the quarter. He's received multiple commanding officer citations. And then from the Pasco Kennewick Rotary, the John Goldsberry Award back in 2012. And that goes to officers in the Tri-Cities that put service above self. So in the Rotary tradition. So it's a pretty unique award for law enforcement officers, at least in our region. Brad, since 2021, has been Detective Sergeant of Investigations. He was promoted to Patrol Sergeant about 10 years before that, 2013. And he's been a detective. He's been on the Metro Drug Task Force. He's been on a Traffic Safety Officer and our Gang Task Force. And as I mentioned, started out here as a reserve officer back in 1991. So I think you all have it on your calendars, but retirement celebration will be 16th of April at 3 p.m. So would encourage council to attend. It's a pretty significant career to honor and celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to celebrating with Mr. Rigger. Hopefully I'll be there, and I look forward to celebrating Easter with the spring extravaganza, whatever it's called. With that, Mr. Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring up the issue that I'm seeing across the city of Pasco with these corner side vendors. I saw one really close to my house, and I have nothing against people trying to make a living, I would celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit of anyone, but I have a problem when they're like right around the corner from my house, just on the block, standing there aimlessly with oranges or selling snow globes. And I would think we're doing a disservice, because I think eventually they're going to cause an accident. Some of them do stand on the corners, like right there on Road 68, Court Street. And so I just wanted to field the council for direction to the city about what we're going to do about this, because they're selling oranges. I don't know if they're insanitary to sell. Again, I haven't bought in anything, but I think we're doing a really bigger disservice to the brick and mortar businesses who pay utility taxes, sales taxes and all that stuff, and all their overhead costs and employees. And then we have people just really almost seems like a group across the whole city selling on almost every other street corner. So if Mr. Zabel has any information to share on that, if we need to just start making complaints to code enforcement, please let me know, and I'll use the Ask Pasco app. But I have fielded phone calls from residents, and for me, the trigger was, I'm just driving down 44 in Burden, and lady's just standing there with oranges on the sidewalk, and again, she's not hurting anyone, but it's just, we don't need people doing that in our neighborhoods. There's places for that. If we need to create a place at Peanuts Park where they can come, and, it's farmers market, maybe give them an application to farmers market. It seems like there's appropriate places for that, and it's not on street corners.
Thank you, Mr. Perales. Mr. Zabel, I see your light.
Yeah, I'll just note, and we've been talking about this at the staff level for the past couple weeks when the vendors first started popping up, and what actions the city can take. That certainly things have been preempted over the years in terms of local control. This is one area where some of that has been preempted. For instance, if it's a Washington grown or made product, there's really not much the city can do. But what I think would be helpful, and what I was kind of kicking around today, was to be able to have legal our police and codes here in a workshop setting, perhaps our next workshop, and council have the opportunity, give you a presentation on it and what we can and can't really do, and have council the opportunity to ask those kind of questions. I think that would, one, help council understand some of the challenges of this, and two, it would give the public something that they'd be able to see, where we have our subject matter experts in a position where they can advise and discuss this issue with council in kind of a comprehensive manner with all three of those disciplines represented. I will say that if anybody is blocking or causing traffic problems specifically, that is something the police can do something about right now. So ask Pasco or call 911 if their behavior is dangerous or presenting a danger to the community. I would encourage people to call 911 and deal with that. But I think if council can be patient and give us a couple weeks to come back with a kind of a detailed presentation, and I think that'll be beneficial rather than trying to solve it tonight.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Harpster.
Thank you. I wanted to add on to Mr. Zabel's comments about Sergeant Gregory. I thought I'd share sort of a humorous first interaction. My dad started with PD in the late 90s, and at the time, and I could be mistaken on details, but what's burned in my memory is Brad Gregory, not yet a sergeant, was working undercover and had a mullet that was permed and a cut-off Raiders jersey. And I remember my dad introduced me to him. I'm like, this guy's not a cop. Like, something's going on here. And was very intimidated by him for several years. And so that was the beginning. And then the end, sort of his career, I had some interaction with him last year where we were dealing with some things at our house. And it was kind of cool to come full circle, no longer scared of him, and having him help me and my family, my kids out. So he's, I've always enjoyed seeing him, and not always, I guess. In the beginning I didn't, but I've really, we're lucky as the city of Pasco to have somebody like him who has worked for this city for 33, 4 years. And so I'll be there Wednesday and hope to see you all there as well. On the vendors selling the oranges and tomatoes, I would definitely love a workshop presentation. I think that'd be super helpful, not just for my own knowledge, but folks reached out to me last week on two things. One, the smell that was going on whatever day that was, that seems to have been asked and answered. And then these vendors, and I don't have a good answer for them. And so the workshop would help me to be able to have an answer. And I also, like Mr. President, I want to know what can we do and what can't we do? Where are the limits? And explore what we can do. For instance, several months ago, maybe this time last year, I think Chief Roski had indicated that if they're blocking sidewalk traffic, then now there's an issue. And some of them on Route 68, you guys might have seen, will line up their flowers along the sidewalk and then stand there. So if I'm walking by and they move out of the way, are they no longer blocking? I've just got a lot of questions like that would be great for a workshop discussion. A couple other questions. The city manager update, there was an email that indicated that GMP was in the information gathering phase. Can you help me understand what exactly does that mean? What does that entail?
So part of that, yeah, thank you. Part of that process would be individual conversations which you had scheduled with council members as well as department directors. And so it's really to kind of get your individual take on characteristics you might want to see in the next city manager experience, those kind of things, as well as your thoughts on the goals and objectives, the major challenges, opportunities you see ahead for the city on the near term and maybe the midterm, things that you're expecting the manager to weigh in on immediately. It's helpful to have that information. Well, the other piece, the third leg of that really is, what is it about the city that brought you here and keeps you here? Because part of this is marketing and trying to describe this opportunity in a way that prospective candidates are going to look at it and say, this is a place that I want to be. This looks really exciting, and it's a reflection on the corporate outlook of the city council as well. So then the next piece of that is, after we have that kind of information, is this meeting that was going to happen tonight, talking to council about corporate view and very similar questions. And also, I think the other piece of this is, Greg was going to talk to you about market and salary range and things like that too. I shared with Councilmember Perales before the meeting that unfortunately the consultant couldn't be here tonight due to illness, but we'll have him back at workshop in a couple weeks. But we're not going to slow the process down or let the schedule slip by 2 weeks. We're going to continue those interviews. Probably will be me instead of Greg, and Greg will then talk to council at the workshop level. But we'll continue that out so we can start to develop that profile and maintain the schedule that was provided previously to you. So the other piece of that is your key staff talking, we have, the city manager has a number of direct reports. And so those similar kind of questions will be asked of key staff. I mean, this is your employee and your stamp needs to be on it. This is their boss, their supervisor. And having an understanding of the perspective of the directors, I think, is really important too. And not only is it important in the profile, it's important for the recruiters, because when you're talking to prospective candidates, understanding where council or staff are coming from, understanding what they're hopeful of seeing, whether it's reasonable or not, is worth knowing when you're talking to prospective candidates. And I'll just say, having been in here now, a couple months, this is a council that is very action oriented. That's going to attract a certain kind of candidate. It'll probably not attract candidates that are more process oriented. So those are the kind of things we want to communicate in a profile to them, is how this council operates and what their expectation of their employee is.
Okay, appreciate that explanation. That's very helpful. And then last time was short-term rentals. It's been like 8 or 9 months since we first gave direction to staff to prepare a presentation on that. And I know we've discussed it via email a couple times, but what progress has been made to that and so far, and when is staff currently anticipating to bring that to council?
Well, not a cop-out, but I wasn't here for short-term rentals, and it's been on our list, and I know I've mentioned it in a couple reports to you that we want to have that discussion with you. Our real hope was that we could have had some time in the past couple of times, the 31st or this past Saturday, to have that discussion. What I think what we can do now, and we had talked a little bit about, we have some Fifth Mondays coming up at the retreat. Remember the last agenda on the item was, or the last item on the agenda was to discuss with council a potential second retreat where we'd get into budget and some of those other issues. I think where council was at, or where I kind of sense we left it, was we're not probably necessarily looking at more Saturdays, but let's maybe have a little bit longer workshop. I heard the idea of starting at maybe 6 on a couple of those, and that might give us some opportunities to dig into an item, for instance, like short-term rentals. It seems to me that we're probably a half hour from having some pretty good direction from you. We just need to have the opportunity to have that discussion, give you the presentation, get some feedback on what you're looking for that'll be concise enough that'll give legal and our planning staff the ability to go put regulations together and bring them back to you.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, if council, following up our conversation on Saturday, if their desire to try to move up next couple workshops, maybe not the next one, but the one after, to 6, maybe that's a great opportunity to add that as an item.
Yeah, I for
And
one
some
would
of the
love
other-
to do that, because like I said, it's been 8 months, and I bring this up because yesterday, front page of the paper was the headline, why 2,000 workers were just hired at Northwest only nuclear power reactor, and the subheadlines about how most short-term rentals are full. And unfortunately, City of Pasco didn't get to take advantage of that. So, like we've mentioned tonight, regarding the other cities around Kennewick and Richland are doing it, and so really think we're missing out. When we talked 8 months ago, there was not a consensus to allow short-term rentals through a code amendment, but there was consensus to discuss it, and so I'd definitely be in favor of doing that in, I think you said 4 weeks or so. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Blaisdell.
I just have a question regarding the vendors on the side of the road. If that would qualify under a peddler's license, and if when you do present that, if you could include peddler's license, so we understand what that is versus people selling on the side of the road. Thank you.
We will certainly go over that discussion.
Thank you. And Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to add, what is now a fourth head nod that yes, I would love to see that vendor discussion as soon as possible for really all the reasons Mr. Perales brought up, but also it's just becoming an eyesore. I mean, a lot of us are here because we don't want to be in California, but it's things like this that kind of make us look like that. And as much as, yeah, we can get away from that as possible, yes, and I would love it at staff's the earliest time they can bring it back, because we're in springtime and they're just going to get more entrenched and into the community, and as soon as we can get them out, for lack of a better phrase, would, I think, behoove the quality of life of our community. So thank you, and I would also, yes, love to have that short-term rentals discussion in 4 weeks as discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights and nothing from staff, that moves us on to item number 7, which is executive session. None is listed, which puts us to adjournment. It is 8:41 and we are now adjourned. Thank you for sticking around.
Sylvester Street, linking the east and west segment of the corridor as we cross 395. Currently, there is a narrow bridge that does not accommodate pedestrian and bicycle facilities, and of course is non-ADA compliant. A previous project that is just about completed has created pedestrian and bicycle facilities along the corridor, and this is a little gap that we have. So we have full funding for this project, and the funding has been received through 2 state grants and just a minor local contribution. At this time, we are presenting to you a professional services agreement with Concert. They are a selected consultant that will perform design if this contract is approved. The scope of this contract is for preliminary engineering up to 30%, so it's not a full design, and it is allowing us to do an analysis on the preferred alternative for installing that bridge, coordinating with DOT, doing outreach, doing all the site investigation that is required, from cultural resources to survey to geotechnical and so on.